You know, victory is supposed to be a simple thing, right? You win a war, you get stronger. But what if that's not how it works? For the Roman Republic, victory, well, it was more like a poison. Their incredible success in conquering the world came with this hidden, staggering cost, one that would literally rot their society from the inside out and set the stage for a whole century of brutal civil war.
To really get what happened, you've just got to see the sheer scale of it. Look at this. On the left, that's Rome in 264 BC. I mean, they're a big deal, sure, but mostly just in Italy. Now look to the right. A little over 100 years later, by 133 BC, Rome has basically swallowed the entire Mediterranean. This wasn't just growth, you guys. This was an explosion. And the shockwaves from it, they would crack the very foundations of the Republic.
So, how on earth did this happen? We're going to follow the chain reaction. First, we'll look at the lightning-fast conquest that kicked it all off. Then we'll dive into the fallout, the corrupt new territories, the absolutely obscene wealth flooding into Rome, the political chaos it created, and finally, how it all came together to push the Republic right to the breaking point.
All right, let's start at the beginning. The catalyst for all this insane change. Rome's unbelievably successful and unbelievably brutal military campaigns across the eastern Mediterranean.
Just look at this timeline. It's wild. In a little over 50 years, Rome just systematically dismantles the great kingdoms left behind by Alexander the Great. Macedonia, the huge Seleucid Empire in Asia, Egypt. One by one, they all fall under Roman control. And to cap it all off, they completely crush the Greek states and burn the ancient, famous city of Corinth right to the ground, just as a terrifying warning to everyone else. The speed was just breathtaking. The world had never seen anything like it.
So, okay, Rome had won the wars. Easy part, right? Well, as they were about to find out, winning the peace was a whole different ballgame. And that brings us to the first huge consequence of their conquest, the problem with the provinces. The Roman solution to governing all this new land seemed simple enough on paper. They'd organize it into provinces. For each one, they'd send out a governor from Rome and give him nearly absolute authority. We're talking control over the army, the courts, and, this is the big one, the power to tax.
And you can probably guess what happened next. This system of, unlimited power, it almost immediately became a system of unlimited corruption. Getting a governorship wasn't a job, it was a golden ticket. A governor could demand pretty much whatever he wanted, and believe me, he was in a hurry to make a personal fortune. And he wasn't alone. He was joined by Roman businessmen, loan sharks, and tax collectors, known as publicans, who just swarmed the provinces to bleed them absolutely dry.
If you want to know just how bad this system got, just think about this. The reputation of these tax collectors, the publicans, was so infamous that centuries later, when the New Testament was written, they were regularly classified right alongside sinners. This wasn't just, bad government. This was organized plunder on an industrial scale.
All that stolen wealth had to go somewhere, right? And it all flowed straight back to Italy. It created this new class of fantastically, unbelievably wealthy Romans and completely transformed the city of Rome itself.
To really feel the scale of this change, you have to see what things were like before. This right here? This is a traditional Roman house. It's simple, it's functional, made of sun-dried brick. It's basically one large room, the atrium, where the whole family lived. This house pretty much embodied the old Roman values, austerity, discipline, simplicity.
And this is what came next. As all that wealth from the conquered Greek world poured in, the Romans developed a serious taste for luxury. They started adding these elegant, column-lined courtyards, separate dining rooms, libraries, and bedrooms, all copied from the fancy homes they'd seen abroad. The simple brick cabin was out, and the lavish personal palace was in.
And if you want a number to wrap your head around, think about this one, 250. After conquering Macedonia, one single Roman general paraded through Rome with 250 wagon loads of Greek statues and paintings. This wasn't just cash, it was a tidal wave of looted culture, all to fill these new luxurious homes.
Now, this new flood of money didn't just change how people lived, it completely warped Roman politics and society. The new luxuries, plus the huge number of people being displaced, created this toxic political environment that really came down to two things: bread and circuses.
And right at the heart of the circuses was the gladiator. The name literally comes from the Latin word for sword, gladius. What's so fascinating is that these brutal fights actually started as a really serious, somber funeral ritual. But in this new, super-rich Rome, They got twisted into this massive, blood-soaked form of public entertainment. So here's the crucial part. These games became a political weapon. Ambitious politicians would spend a fortune on two things: free grain for the poor and bigger, bloodier, more spectacular gladiatorial games. And why? To win votes, get elected to a high office, and then, here's the prize, get a provincial governorship where they could steal enough money to pay off all their debts and get filthy rich. The circuses were literally fueling the corruption in the provinces. It was a vicious cycle.
And while all this was happening in the city, the very backbone of the old republic was breaking. The small-time citizen farmer, the guy who had been the core of the Roman army and society for centuries, he just couldn't compete anymore. While he was away fighting Rome's wars for years at a time, his farm would fall into debt, and the new rich would swoop in, buy up these small plots, and stitch them together into these gigantic plantations worked by armies of slaves captured in those very same wars.
So what happens to these soldiers when they finally come home? They find their farms are gone. Their families have been kicked off the land. With absolutely nowhere else to go, they flooded into the city of Rome. This created a huge, rootless, unemployed mob that was totally dependent on the handouts and the entertainment offered by those ambitious politicians. They became the bread and circuses crowd.
So by the late 2nd century BC, you've got all these things mixing together. The corruption in the provinces, this massive gap between the super rich and the dirt poor, and a city full of displaced people. It was a perfect storm. Rome was an empire in a full-blown crisis.
You can boil the whole crisis down to three existential threats. First, you have an internal threat, this growing, deadly hatred between the rich and the poor. Second, a governmental threat, a complete and total failure to actually govern the massive empire they had just fought so hard to win. And finally, an external threat. While Rome was rotting from the inside, barbarian hordes were gathering up on the northern frontiers, threatening to wipe the whole thing out. And all of this leaves us with the one central question. Rome's military machine had proven it was unstoppable. It had crushed every single kingdom and rival that stood in its way. But that very victory had unleashed forces inside Roman society that were proving to be way more dangerous than any foreign army. So having conquered the world, the greatest challenge Rome now faced was, could it conquer itself?